Sorry, I was just finishing up my coffee. Or finishing making it, rather. I got it right next to me. Um, hmm. Think I'm gonna turn on the AC. All right, so how are we doing? I already asked that. So hey, sorry about the AC. The past several weeks have actually been pretty temperate, which has been nice. So I haven't had to have that in the background as ambient noise, and that helps with like cleaner audio. But I just checked the temperature today, and it's 87 Fahrenheit, and I was very surprised. The past couple of days, it's actually been pretty. It's gotten pretty hot again in Boston, despite it feeling almost like fall for quite some time. Also, if you can't hear it, and if it isn't obvious, I'm getting over a bit of sickness. So, yes, this is public. All right. So the fortunate part is that all my congestion and snot and all that that has stopped, and my nose is perfectly clear right now. But apparently, there are lingering effects on my throat. So I'm gonna sound a little odd right now, for which I apologize. Right, I want to get this link. Tweet this out. Stop sources. Actually, what would happen if oh, I could turn the image off. That's interesting. All right. Also, to be fair, I know there have been several times where like I've had Discord on this particular monitor, and I don't necessarily want people looking at it. So I just had to move that over to the second monitor. So my apologies for not remembering to do that ahead of time. So, did a little digging. Yeah, before we get started, I want to credit the person on the Dark Mod forums who gave us the idea for putting teleporters at the specific entrances and exits on the ship itself, and that is Dragfer. It's Dragofer. Something involving dragons, I guess. So, yeah. So, moving off of that idea, I started looking at teleporters and what we can do. And as it turns out, in the dark mod, there's several options which I just messed around with in the test map here. And we're going to start going over our options with other pros and cons. Excuse me. So, first off, for one of these approaches, and this was the first one I did, turns out there's a specific info player teleport entity that you can place within the map, which is pretty handy, but the problem with it is that, and we'll see this once we get into it, it teleports the player to that location, but it also sets the angle that the player is facing. And if we want to have the player move between like a real ship and a fake ship, or like the ship that's actually like in the map and moving versus the ship that is sort of off stage and its own sound stage, then we would want to preserve the player's angle that they're facing so that it doesn't feel like they're being teleported, because we want this to be as seamless as possible. So I'm not sure if there's a way to sort of preserve or save the player's angle once they hit this trigger, and then once they are teleported here, restore the player's facing direction. I mean, that might be possible, but I don't know how to do it, and it's a little weird. So I was trying to investigate other approaches, and as it turns out, in code, there is something here called, or there's a specific function that we can use to move the player in the script events, and that is right here, player set origin, and then you just feed it what's called a vector 3. For people who don't know, a vector 3 is basically just a 3D coordinate, although it can be used in many different ways, especially if you're looking at like angles and movement. But its most basic thing is just like, getting the location or setting the location of something in a 3D space. So yeah, I was initially trying to use like move to position, but apparently that's only working. That only really works on moving platforms and similar objects within the code base. So, right. And so the thing is that if you set the player origin, it's a little weird, but in terms of how it's being placed, but we can, we can use that because it keeps the player facing where they're supposed to be. Oh, whoops, not what I want. So, oh, jeez, just did it twice. We'll be fine, but all right. So I don't know if you remember the location of the triggers within that map, but over here, more-ish, is the info player teleport thing. So I think if I walk, well, I know definitely if I walk like sideways here, you see, there's that snap because it changes the direction the player's facing. So that should be back here, like that. If it's directly behind us, we're gonna, walk into that, and that at least will. It has like the consistent angle there, but we would obviously need a way to like rotate the player, like right after the teleport happens and before like that frame renders. I don't know how to do that again, but you can see the problem there. Whereas the trigger that is about over here, boom, moves us over here. And if I face, say, over here, yeah. So that keeps it consistent. So I think that's going to be the way I approach it. The only thing is that, what's it? The only thing that's going to be tricky is that in the context of our full map, is that, so we're going to be teleporting back and forth from this ship, which is going to be moving through the map, and this ship, which is sort of our sound stage or our dummy. Yeah. And so because of that, like, teleporting the player to here by giving an exact set of coordinates like this, moving here is fine. The problem is going to be moving back over there when that thing is going to be continually moving. Now, the thing about this is that we can, we have several options. I think what we can do is just simply have some sort of object or entity basically in here. Sort of a this isn't like the right entity to use, but just to illustrate the point here. We would just have some sort of object here to teleport the player to, but then we would probably bind it to the moving ship so that it would just move along with the ship, and then we would just pass it these coordinates. The only tricky part is that might there might be like a slight difference between, say, like where the player is going to contact the trigger on the other ship. Because you could hit the trigger along any surface basically, and that would be the point relative to the ship where you'd be teleporting from. And so if that doesn't line up with where this point is, then it's gonna look like the player's moved slightly. I think there are ways to smooth that out, but that's a potential problem that we're gonna have with this. Excuse me. A potential problem we're gonna have with this method. I'm still gonna go forward with it, but yeah, that's just something we need to figure out eventually. So, okay, so this is kind of like S-bends in older like older games, like in things that are made in sorry, there's an ambulance going there. Yeah, older games that are made in like Unreal 1 or Unreal 2. They quite frequently have these like hallways that like bend into like an S shape or something like that, just so that you can be sure that like the player cannot physically see both rooms that hallway would connect to, so that way you can have one loaded and one unloaded at any given time. So in the same sense, like, we want a little geometry to be faked here. Just so that like the player from this moving ship can like see like, oh, there's like an interior here, but then beyond a certain point we want to swap the player to the replica basically. So let's see, and that's world spawn, right? So we're gonna make this what's it, trigger multiple. Only responds to a specific entity. Interesting. Yeah, okay. Trigger multiple here. Oh, I don't want it sticking out there. Oh, come on. And here we are. Is that still? Yep, that's good. Then I am. Well, actually. Oh yeah, so first things first, we should start making a script for this. So yeah, if we look at this file, movertest.script, basically all you need to do to set up scripting for a map in the Dark mod is you just need a .script file with the same name as the map, and it just needs to be in the same folder. And that's how the game knows to hook those two things up. What's it? I think I went over this a little on a prior session, but basically this is just like a renamed text file. So, which as it turns out is an extremely common, it's an extremely common way to get like your proprietary file types in game development. There are some other examples of that I'll get to in a bit. So basically, to make a script for this map, all we need to do is go canal.script to this text file. Yes, we want to change that. I have this associated to open up Visual Studio already anyways. Wait, that's going to open up a second instance. As you can see here, I do not need two separate windows for Visual Studio to open. So I'm going to file, open, just a file. That'll be in here, script. And okay. So to define this, and I'm just going to look over here and basically copy stuff, because I can never remember some of the particulars of these things. So we have our what are called preprocessor arguments. Basically, if mover test is not defined somewhere in the code, then we're going to define mover test, and this is the body of the definition, and then end if. So yeah, so if and def, and I believe the underscores is just sort of the style that canal script. Let's go with that. That's just sort of the style that a lot of people in the Dark mod community kind of follow for these. So, you know, when in Rome. Canal script. I don't think this is necessarily required to get it up and running, if I'm not mistaken, but I'd rather not take that chance. Okay. So if you get into scripting, or if you get into any sort of game programming, there are a couple of things you need to know in order to start doing stuff, and that is just basically the structure of any set of game development tools. If you're going to do scripting, is going to have a couple of functions. And so you have void main here, and main is just basically the first function that is going to be called. And so like anything we write within this is going to be called on map start, basically, whenever it's booted up. So we just need a void main in here. And what's it? And in the idtech for scripting language specifically, this is a particularly weird thing, but basically every command in a script needs to be called relative to an object, unless it is a global function within this script. And basically what I mean by that is that void foo, because that's a classic, and then void bar good old comp sci examples. So basically, these are just, and if you've not done any programming or scripting before, basically this just sort of tells us that this is a list of instructions that can be run from other places. So if I just go foo right here, once the script gets called when the map starts up, you go into foo here, and then the instructions in here will be run. And then we will say that sys.print sys in this context is short for system. Before foo, something like that. And then if you go into here, during foo, and the quotation marks just sort of define what's called a string, which is just a piece of text, basically, during foo, and then what's it, sys.print after foo. So basically, oh, that's not what I wanted. So basically, in this context, we'll start at main when the game boots up, or when the map boots up, and then it'll print out to the developer console or the cheats console. We'll get this message of before, and then it'll go to foo, and then we'll get during second, and then after that we'll get after, just to give you an understanding of like the order in which these are called in. This is basically just shorthand for whatever the hell we're going to be putting in here. And so instead we're just going to write canal main, something like that, just to show that it's up and running. And so basically within here we can just define sets of instructions with whatever name that we want. I'm going to go void, and then cabin, why did I type it that way? Cabin teleport. Oh my god, I'm having a bad day. Teleporting things, or typing things. Jesus Christ. Yeah. So basically in here, the way we communicate with entities in our map. Oh, what's that? Right. So, I'm sure you've been noticing, if you've been watching our prior streams, that every entity has a name, and this is unique to it. Like, we can't have multiple things that are named the same thing within these maps. I believe there's been a couple of errors that I've made when trying to name like certain path nodes, and it ends up being a copy of another node. So it won't allow you to name the multiple things the same thing, and that is because it needs to have unique names so that it knows what it's calling in here. So in these scripts, you put a $, and then you type the name of the thing that you want to access. And so in this case, it's going to be player 1, because that is the reserved name for the first player once the game is running. And so, as per our other script, it's going to be set origin, and then to define a point in 3D space, we surround it with single quotes, not double quotes, in this context, within this particular scripting language. And so now we just need to get the coordinates to about here. I wonder if there's just like some sort of like empty object or placeholder that I can basically just put somewhere, just so I can have a thing that holds like a 3D point, because that would be really helpful here. I might need to look into that. But if I were to say, well, I could probably just do it with like a node, right? I don't know, just do path weight. Okay. So if we're going to have this here, there's a couple of things we can do to use this. First off, we have its origin right here, which is the vector 3 that we're looking for. So basically we could just copy this over and paste it in here, and that'll work totally fine. But again, in the context of a moving ship, the point that you want to teleport the player to is going to be changing over time because the ship is literally moving. And so just to get a little practice for what we're going to need to do later on, we're actually going to pass this in as sort of its own variable. So the thing is that one of the more basic things about programming is that there are data types, and that's pretty literal. It's that any variable within code is a certain type of data, and so you can use two variables of the same data type basically interchangeably, and get different results because of that. So if we look over here, I'll close that. If we look over here, this is the dark mod script reference stuff. Very handy to have this open while you're writing stuff. You've been noticing I've been writing void in front of these function names, and that's because that means that, say, if we call cabin teleport from here, and teleport from here, there's nothing in this set of instructions that will be receiving information back from this list of instructions. But if we were to say, and I believe it's just vector in, I'll just call this vec. Yeah, if we were to do something like this, technically that is possible, but only if we specify the return type, which means that the data type that is going to be returned to here is going to be a specific something like that. We don't want to do that in this case, but there are things that are already set up that will do that for us. So if we go so this is sorted alphabetically in this section. So if we go to get, okay, yeah, we're right. So if we look for something that we want, like get origin, which I think will be the function name. Yes, get origin. Okay. So this is a script event, and it tells us it's going to be a return type of vector, and it'll give us the origin of whatever we put into, or whatever we are calling this function on. So in this case, it's going to be, I'll call this cabin teleport loc, or cabin teleport point. How about we do that? Oh, and we should actually apply that. And so if we, instead of typing that in here manually, and basically that means that like this can't change during runtime, instead if we call that object and then we call get origin, then basically that's the same thing, except if this location changes, like say the ship moves, this is not the ship that will move, but if it moves, okay, that changed. That basically means that now if we get its origin after the move, then that'll be reflected in the code here as well. And so that's really nice that it can handle changes over time. I know this is like Programmer 101 stuff, but like, I don't know. Part of this is that I want to elucidate people. Is that the right word? I want to have better explanations for people as to why, or like how game development is work, or the work of game development, So I definitely want to get this covered as well. So, and now with our instructions, those are set up, at least for this specific teleport point. But how do we actually get the trigger here to call that set of instructions? Well, as it turns out, there is an entity that will do exactly what we want. So, create entity, and if I recall, that was, I think it was call script object, right? I think that's in func, or call script. Yeah, it's not an info. No. Shop triggers. Oh, I think it was, yes. Okay. Target call script function calls a global script function when triggered. That's exactly what we want in this case. So I'm just going to move it over here, kind of. And then, and this is a handy thing that I discovered while reading some of the dark mod stuff. We can link this by hitting Control K, and that would have been really handy when setting up patrol paths for AI. So yeah. So now on this, if we do call and we do cabin teleport, which is the name of our set of instructions here, this will be called once the player hits this trigger, because it's going to point to this object which has the name of our code snippet on it. So now if we just do map and wait for that to load up. Alright, so first things first here. Hey, remember when we said we were going to have that message print to the console here with canal main? Well, you can see that right there at the bottom, the last line. So that indicates that the script is hooked up properly. So I'm going to no clip and no target all the way over here to the ship. And we're over here. Okay, so we're going to hit this trigger and get teleported. Oh. Well, that's good that we noticed that now. So it sounds like it worked, but an oversight on my part is that this is outside the bounds of our ambient light. So, oh boy. Alright, so we're gonna have to move all this. Over here is probably okay. And where's our ambient light? It's here it is. I can get a clear, yeah. Okay, so now the ship is within there. The far skybox brush is not necessarily so I'm just gonna resize this a bit and make it just a tad larger. And okay. Now we should actually have light when we teleport over there. And if I pull this back over here, I've not been looking at the chat. No one's talked yet. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So let's just check that again. Make sure. And again, we're going to no clip. And all right. So if you saw that sort of snap, and we are now in our separate little box. So we have one teleporter going one way set up. So, yeah. Transmission, indeed. Cool, just like a dozen of those to go. Man, this is going to be tough because, at least in this particular case, because there's, like, you can pretty much see out here. My main concern for returning is that, what's it? My main concern is that, like, this will overlap with the other trigger. And then, you know, the player will get teleported into the trigger over here and then go to the other point, and then they'll get teleported to the trigger over there. And that's sort of, you know, I'm concerned about the player getting caught up in an endless loop because of that. So I want there to be enough space between all of these things. But unfortunately, this is a pretty tight area. So we're going to have to be real cautious about it. Okay, so I'm gonna take this and make a copy of it and move it over to our replica. Oh, hey Rosa. So, yeah. So I think because of that, we're gonna want... Yeah, move that over here, but then, you know, from this perspective, like, the player can clearly see, like, out. And so if they teleport and, you know, all of this changes, I think it'll be very obvious that they're being swapped between two places. So I'm not necessarily, you know, I really don't want that. Okay, so I'm going to go and make another, well, first I'm going to move this over a little bit, just to get parity, with the, path weight point over there, and then I will make another over here. Path weight. Right there. So. So already we're going to be running into problems. This is also a pretty good indication of problems that not just level designers have, but actual engineers have. Engineers, programmers, whatever term you want to use for them. So, what's it? We've sort of used the vernacular of cabin teleport here because we're going to be teleporting the player to and from the ship's cabin with these teleporters, or the captain's cabin, captain's quarters. So that's the thing. But the thing is that we have one going to our replica and one going from our replica. So the thing is that with variable names, cabin teleport. Excuse me. So the thing is with variable and function names, it's good to pick names that are very distinctive and can't be confused for other things. And that's sort of a tricky thing in and of itself. So for this, instead, I'm going to do... What's it? Come on. Captain... Teleport... And then my initial thoughts are that you would say something like to when you're going to the replica, or saying from when you're coming from the replica. But if I were to theoretically pass this to like someone else to finish, which, you know, I'm not going to, but in the context of game development, like, other people are going to be reading your code, unless you're doing it completely solo. You know, people wouldn't necessarily know that if, like, they started reading my code. So to make it more parsable and easier to understand, I'm going to go with the vernacular of like bottle, because like ship in a bottle, nah, that's too esoteric. Replica, let's go with that. So for teleporters and functions that are going to move the player to the replica, I'm going to add the suffix of replica at the end. Teleport world. And then for things moving back to the main map, I'm going to use the suffix world to specify that. And so now we need to rename a bunch of things. I'm going to go Captain Teleport Replica Point. Come on. So if we fly over here, this will be the new name for our entity. And for the function that we're going to call, that should just be teleport replica. Okay, and so instead we will name this Captain Teleport World Point. And for this, we're going to have it call Captain Teleport World. So, in that, this is going to be basically the same logic. Except we are going to pass it the point of teleport world point. So basically we're just going to have like a one-line function for all of these things. There's probably less intensive ways of writing this all. But, you know, this will still work. So what's it? In the case of older engines, scripting has to be done mostly with a web of trigger objects in the map. Is that still largely the case here? Yeah, pretty much. I know there's a lot of that in the Dark engine, because I've messed around with that for, you know, Shock 2 stuff. Teleport here, and now we're in the replica, and we should teleport here, and now we're back in the actual map. So hey, so that's cool. Yay. Alright, so one of those down. The more I've messed with triggers in Deus Ex, the less I understand. Yeah. I've not done anything in Deus Ex modding, even though that sounds really cool, and I really feel like I want to at some point, but yeah. Is it... even worth teleporting the player to and from the forecastle here, because you can just basically see outside from every angle. I don't think we're going to have enemies patrolling in there, because it's just too small, you know. Excuse me. And for this, I don't know. This is an interesting case because I think we'll only have it like go one way. I don't think the player. Then again, if it's an immersive sim, they can probably find ways of getting back out through here. Yeah, I might as well do it two-way here. All right. But for, say, this area, it's pretty unambiguous in terms of whether we want one-way or two-way. So, all right, so let's make a copy of this and move that down here. What's the current goal? I had to miss the last few streams. Well, that's all right. So basically, we've found a way, or someone on the Dark Mod forums by the name of Dragifer. Is that like a Lucifer dragon, maybe? I don't know. Anyways, they had a very good suggestion that instead of creating a whole replica of this ship that the player could basically teleport to from any point on its perimeter to a separate one-off stage, we only teleport them as they are going into and out of the interior. And so it's gonna be a little tough in terms of sort of disguising that, but I think it's gonna be perfectly fine. Or I mean, it'll function and it'll be less restrictive than just bolting the ship to one place, you know, which is not what I want to do. Okay. So basically that's what we're trying to get set up right now. Indeed. You know, I've also been messing because I've been doing some work on this in Albino Lullaby for a couple of things. I've started discovering render textures and screen capture, stuff like that. I'm not sure if that technology... Well, kind of. So basically, I'm wondering, instead of replicating certain details from this map, in the replica ship here to make it look less fake. I'm wondering instead if we could have sort of a camera pointing, camera set up here and pointing outwards, and then on the other ship where this door would be, we would have a surface that the camera's view is being drawn onto, because that's basically how the skybox works, you know. I just don't know if like you could have like more than one camera doing that at a time, or more than one camera doing that at all. Okay, so it's going to do. We're gonna call it Stern Teleport Replica. Then we're gonna make a function with that name. And then over here, we're gonna get a path weight node and move that down here, about here. Oh, you know, I think what I can do. And this will be a little more complicated math, but I think what I can do is like if the player was going to teleport from here into the replica, that we could sort of get the difference from this node, or we could get the difference in position from the player to this particular node, and then on the replica we would have to position it basically in the exact same spot relative to everything else, but we could teleport the player to there and then add the offset that they have to this node in the real world, and that might be a way to deal with the difference in distance or in the difference in location, depending on the trigger. I think we can do that. We'll take a look at that after we get all this set up for the first time. So yeah, we're gonna call this Stern Teleport point world. Or is it world point? I think it's world point that I'm trying to. Yes, world point. That's the convention I'm trying to set up. And then again, we're going to make a copy of this. wait, hang on. Hmm. All right, I think we want this one on the outside of the door, and then the other one on the inside. Okay. And then for this, I'm gonna go, yeah, Stern Teleport World. And then we're going to create path weight node here. So be Stern Teleport or replica point. Yeah. So then in here, void Stern Teleport World. And then just grab that. Not with the extra curly brace. Stern. And also not with the extra curly brace. Stern Teleport World Point, and this should be replica. Replica.
Yay.
All right, and I need to move things around here because I got it wrong. Okay. Now from this point, that should be functioning. So let's test that out. Boy, that's gonna be a problem, huh? Alright. So, down here, if we Right. And just to check. Yes, indeed. Now, if we... Hey, look at that. Alright, so that's working. Alright, and now I think what we gotta do with these two. Actually, I've been thinking about this. Because there's really no distance between the interior and the exterior, so well, I mean, not clearly. I mean, from this point on the replica ship, you can clearly see outside of the ship. Whereas if you go through here, you can clearly see the inside. So, yeah. So I'm wondering if we could, because the structure of the ship is very helpful here, I'm wondering if we could just kind of block this off and make like one door frame in the center here and actually have that be the entry point, and then we just kind of teleport the player in and out relative to this hallway that we will create. The other solution is that, again, we have something set up with the render textures there. If that is indeed possible. Well, I'll tell you what, because it's kind of tough anyways to see in the replica ship. I'm going to go out here, and I am going to look at prefabs. And we're going to look at a skybox. Oh, no, that's not exactly what we want. I will find the skybox prefab, and then we can hopefully look at that. Decorative. To the wiki, real quick.
Skybox.
Basic details. File load prefab, navigate to prefabs, and select nature skyboxes. So that's where it is. Oh wait, hang on. Oh, come on. Yeah. So it's interesting, when you're pulling up like models or this prefab viewer, like you can see things. This is actually like its own camera, which is interesting. And they're all just in different locations, because why not? Sky, starry, storm, thunder, spring heel, old school. Let's go moon, foggy. And where did that end up? Jeez. Oh, over there. So, if I recall from my last map, I think this should be already set up to project the texture onto the portal sky brushes here. Right, and this is... Oh, come on. I really can't look at the individual components here. Just have to select this whole thing as like one. Great. But yeah, if you look in here, basically what's happening is that this orange box is a camera, and that is paired with player movement, so that you get some nice little parallax with this, but it is actually like physically placed within like this miniature thingy here, which is basically just a terrain mesh turned upside down and textured with like a sky texture. And because of that, you can place like little miniature models in here and have like models that like render in the distance, but they're actually just like completely off stage. It's pretty cool. But if I go back, sky background color. Huh. Sorry, I'm reading this right now. Rendering scenery. Check the zoom camera. I don't. Camera zoom and camera settings. So what's the actual camera entity? I would like to know. Oh, is this mostly just for a flat texture? Oh no, creating the skybox. Entity info portal sky. I see. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna work. Try render texture. Yeah, I don't think that's it. Yeah, so I think we're just gonna live with it for now, and we will fix it later, or we will decide on a solution later. So, here. So, what are we going to call this? I guess relative to the front of the ship, this would be the port side. This would be starboard. So I will call this, I'll call this function starboard and port. Yeah, port teleport replica. That'll be fine. Wait, hang on. I think I just had a realization. Do they call the right side of the ship port because they always dock the ship with the right side facing towards the port? And then this is starboard because it's out looking towards the stars when they're docked. Is that why? Because if so, that's gonna be like mind blowing for me. That'd be wild. Wait, hang on. I mixed those up. Port is left, starboard is right. So this would actually be starboard. God damn it. Glad I caught that though. So that, yeah, that would need to be starboard. I stand by my hypothesis. I'm just, it would just be reversed sides. Teleport world point. And then while we're here, because they're so close to each other. Port, teleport replica, and then port, teleport, world point. Yeah, buddy. Over here, and then up here. Yep. All right. And this will call board teleport world. This will be the starboard teleport replica point. Okay. Oh boy. So let's see. Teleport world. I'll just copy these and just switch this out for port, and we should be good. Yep, looks good. I also remember that we need to what's I need to move this around because we want the player to move to the interior of the ship on the replica, not the other way around. Okay. Now we're gonna test those. So I guess I should say on the job search front, I didn't stream last week because I had another design test. So I turned that in on Monday. I have not heard back from the studio. Not even a confirmation of like, hey, we got your test, which is a little strange, and I should probably prompt them. Oh, also, we've now got this nice skybox going. Look, there's a moon. That's pretty cool. So, alright, looks like we are there. Oh. Did you see that? Well, actually, I think it's just because of the wall on the side there. Actually, no, that's fine. Yeah, that, because you can see the city from here, or the city along the skybox perimeter. But this looks like it's working. Oh yeah, so I turned in that design test on Monday, and Thursday night, actually, I got an email from ZeniMax Online, actually. And and it looks like they want to do a phone interview tomorrow, so that's pretty exciting. So again, yep. Nice. Okay. So good. These three work. So yeah, hopefully that goes somewhere. Oh, and what's it? Sam, who is still the community manager at Other Side, she actually sent me a little notification that Harvey Smith tweeted out about an opening at Arcane that hadn't been listed yet. So I responded to his tweet, and then he actually started direct messaging me about it. And he was just like, yeah, just put it in a general app. So I don't know how long it's going to take for movement on that, or even if they will consider me or put me in the running. But yeah. So, hopefully that goes somewhere. So for this trapdoor thing is or this hatch thing in particular, that was Level Plus Systems Design. Yep, it was. Yeah. Okay, so this is gonna be tough, because like what I want is for the player to be able to jump down into here and then just zip on over to the replica. But if I think about it, like there's a number of ways that the player could like do really weird finicky things with this. Like they could try and stack some crates and then like create a ladder to hop on out here, but then the challenge becomes like, how do I know when I need to teleport the player back here? Because like view. That's it, right? Yeah. And I will delete this for the time being. Right, so Q tab. All right. So if we have a trigger like here, when the player jumps down and they're teleported to the replica, that works just fine. The problem is on the replica when we're trying to teleport them back into the world. Because it's like, I don't know, if we're going to put this trigger here, then we don't want the player to be teleported into that, because we'll just get an infinite loop. And so, if we put it down here, that kind of gives us the leeway of, like, if they've cleared the hatch in the replica, meaning that they are, touching a trigger above here, then we can teleport them back over here. But the problem with that is that there's going to be varying heights that the player could be at. They could, like, mantle up here and, like... Actually, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the player can, like, mantle up and then, like, remain in a crouching position, or if they can mantle up and remain in a standing position as well, or if it defaults to one or the other. I can't recall off the top of my head. The point is that there's, like, multiple heights that the player could be at, and so there's, like, some issues that, like, they could be overlapping both triggers at the same time, or they could climb out onto the replica and not hit the trigger that's supposed to send them back to the real world. And then, the player from up here has a pretty clear view of a bunch of stuff before they get moved over, or they would on the replica, and then you would just sort of see that snap into existence, and I really don't like that. And again, you can do finicky things like have the player stacking crates, and maybe they could be, like, standing on here and then reach a height that they could hit the trigger to go back, and then, they wouldn't have the crates below them anymore. And that would be a problem. I think the basic solution is to just close this off. I don't like that. But, that's a compromise I can live with, I think. That's 112 square, so that's good. I should apply a different texture to that so we can clearly see. I'm going to make that a func static. Then on the replica, because I'm going to move it over there, or make a copy to move over there. Because the player's going to be in the interior of here. we'll set this back to World Spawn. This copy. Alright. So, I'm gonna use the restroom real quick, and I'll be right back. Alright, I am back. The great thing about making coffee right before the stream is that I have something nice to drink for the first little bit of it. And the downside of that is that it makes me need to use the restroom in the middle of it. Alright. So yeah, I think with that, we have basically everything set up in terms of teleportation. So, first off, the player's not really going to be on the exterior of the ship here. So, we can delete all this. Nice. And we can delete that on the moving ship as well. Oop. And delete. Okay. All right. So what now? So my concern now is about getting this ship to move. Mostly just so, excuse me, I can test whether or not this you can actually bind these points and these triggers to a moving mesh and still have it move with the mesh that it's bound to, because I need to check that. So, and if it works as expected, then we're in the clear, and that's really nice. And if it doesn't work as expected, oh dear God, I'm gonna cry. Because then we'll have to figure out another solution. Because I'm pretty sure you can, like, at least in terms of path nodes, I know you can move those around. But trigger volumes, I'm not sure. Yeah, so what I'm doing right now is I'm just taking all of this funk static stuff on the inside. And I'm gonna make it one giant funk static and then just bind that whole thing to this ship model. Just so it'll actually move with the ship. So. Oh. Did I forget one? Yeah, I did. Let's do this. Patch there. This there. whoops. Okay, why won't this? Is it because of a patch there? I'm right clicking on the grid view and it's not coming up with the make func static option. So I don't know what's going on there. Is there also like a maximum number of things I can select here? Because I'm pretty sure I didn't miss that, right? Yeah. Okay. So if we move that out here. No. Oh, it's because... I know why. It's because that's already func static. What am I gonna do with those? Yeah, I'll just leave it. Alright. So, if I recall my moving ship map. This is this is a func static. And where's the origin? The origin is right here. So that's cool. I will place, I believe, a func mover there. Oh, maybe I'm supposed to give it... Okay, so maybe I'm supposed to have this ship be a func mover with a model. So let's try creating that. And where's... Oh, that's all the way up there. Oh dear. Alright, so... Nice. So... I just need to move that down and more. And everything should be pretty much aligned. Okay. ship mover. Go to bind that to the ship mover. This to the ship mover, bind that to the ship mover. And I think we only need that to start, because if it doesn't work with one, then obviously it's not going to work with multiple. Excuse me. Oh, and we don't need these either, which is nice. Okay, so if I recall correctly, what we're going to do is we're going to create something called a NURBS curve. Oh, did I necessarily want that on this? I don't... Splines and camera movement. Okay. So what we need, apparently, is a tiny brush here. At the same origin. More or less. More or less the same origin as the ship model. What we're going to do is we are going to make that a Func spline mover, which is apparently in. So that it says Dark Mod Func. Ah, there we are. Okay. Main menu, select curve, create NURBS curve. All right, there we are. So we can see this. It's basically just a series of points here. Yeah, with like sets of like coordinates. And basically, these are all vertices. move. And this can give us a path to move a thing along. Okay. So this will probably create weird consequences with, yes, with these guys. Because this thing is going to be moving in and out of solid geometry. But, it is to be expected. At least for now. So, if I recall, oh, I see. So, okay, apparently this spline so that's named spline mover 2. Oh, and this curve is spline mover 3. So we actually need to copy this, and we will delete this object, and then we will paste that in here. Alright, so name is spline mover 2, and I believe because of that we need to have the ship mover bound to the spline mover. And now the spline mover copy and just put that there. 2 slashes in a coding context before a line means that the computer is going to ignore that line. It's called a comment. So basically you can just write whatever and be like, this function does a thing, you know. Very handy for marking things up or for selectively removing and adding certain commands. So, if I recall, okay, so I think what this is saying, because I've got that article on this stuff off of on the second monitor. Need to take this and func ship mover. I need to call some instructions called start spline, and then with that we will get the name of this. And right before that, we want to actually set how long it's going to take. Mover time, and this is in seconds, so let's say 25, so it's not too crazy fast, but it should be fast enough for us to actually notice the movement. And I believe that's all we need. Start spline. Yeah. All right. So yeah, because of that, there should be some offset. So let's do this. Okay. Huh. Well. Where'd it go? Oh my god. Well, I will say on the bright side, it looks like most of our Funk static interior went with it. I think these are just brushes that got excluded for some reason. Yeah, let's actually fly over here. So I was going to do the captain's cabin, right? So if I... Okay, so if I move through here and I don't end up in that half wreck of... of the leftover interior brushes, then this will work. And... okay. Kind of. So I got teleported out here. I'm not sure if the ship's out here. I can't tell. But I did not end up back in this area. So it seems to me like that would indicate it's successful. Which I guess is mixed because I don't know where this thing is. Alright. So I think first things first, I want to well, actually, you know what I'll do? Because this is going to be moving. Call. Sys dot wait, and I believe that should be the right thing. And then it'll be like 5 seconds after this last command. Then it'll and then sys dot print, and I should be able to print out to get origin. I believe. Another thing I might want to look at is acceleration time. Set that. Time 0.1. Get origin, and then I'll do another 5 seconds and then have it print out again. Well, I'll do from the origin and then 5 seconds in and then 10 seconds in, and if the position of the trigger is actually different, then this will work, provided the ship does not teleport into the void somewhere. So
Son of a whore better have my money.
and shit. But that's really weird to me because oh, you know what? Because the path weight node can move with the ship, but the trigger can't. Shit. God damn it. Alright. I think there are ways around this, but it's gonna get progressively hackier from here. Instead of that, I'm gonna do oh, by the way, can I... usually when you're printing things out in a code context, you can use this new line character, which is backslash plus n, to get things to separate into separate lines. That's the way it is in C++ and C#, but I don't know if that's going to be the case in this scripting language. Worst case scenario, it just has backslash n on the end of everything, so... alright. I believe if you only change things in the script, you don't need to demap things again. Because the script is actually read in at runtime, which is pretty neat. Yep, new line character works. Oh, it says that hasn't moved either. But that's just untrue. Okay, so if I move back over here into the replica, and and I'm teleported out into the void here. So the origin has moved, it's just not printing that way, at least for the path node. Alright. Let's... Alright, let me try something. I'm just gonna put an extra... thingy here. I'm gonna make this a very inappropriate texture for this for a ship, just so it will look distinct. Yeah, grass texture. So I'm just gonna have that there, so I can know where I will need to walk the plank.
What?
Alright, so hopefully this does not teleport me. It does not. So... okay. So that means that it is moving with the ship. It just doesn't say that it is. Which, hey, fine by me. Alright, so the only... issue with that then is... Hmm. This is tricky. That was Funk Spline Mover. Oh, hang on. Oh, actually. Yeah, this is a bit weird. Oh, that is... Huh. Okay, that's weird. So even the spline mover says it's not moving anywhere. That's strange. Yes, I want to quit. Okay, so yeah, I'm basically looking at this article on the Dark Mod Wiki, and so we've got a Funk Spline mover, holds the data, name it to Spline 5. And then it has a NURBS curve in it. And then we need to... Oh, okay, so we create a mover that is separate from what we want to move? Oh, a target null. That would be helpful for the teleporting positions. Okay, but the ship itself is a Funk Mover model. So maybe it should just be func static instead. So I'm wondering, does that mean, is this still... Yeah, it's still bound to the ship mover, so that's good. Or func ship mover, even though it's not a mover now. Okay, so yeah, func spline mover, and I think because of that, we actually want a separate mover from the spline mover, because, you know, that makes sense. Entity. So func. There's a func mover. And this is, let's just name it ship move point. Copy. Then we will okay. First off, I'm not, well, spline mover might be interesting, but I'm not getting useful data from these things, at least. So instead, if I do, I believe if I do Control Alt, I can, no, Shift Alt, yeah, buddy. Ship move point, and then ship move point. Start spline, and that should be. Moving along. Func spline mover 2. I recall. All right. Excuse me. Oh, whoops. I think I messed that up. Ship move point, and then this is, yes, it is not bound to the actual mover. Well, it stayed still that time, even though it was bound to the spline mover itself, so I don't know what's going on there. Well, here's hoping it does something this time. actually doing what it's supposed to. Hell yeah. Okay, so now because of this, I should be able to. And we've teleported to the replica. And if I move here. Well, okay. Okay. Clearly, there's something going on there. And this is indeed bound to the ship model. I mean, this is bound to the ship model as well. It just... Okay, so the tricky thing with these is that... Okay, with something like this, for instance, the multi-trigger, this actual thing where the 3D axes is coming out is where its origin point is. But the thing is, you'll notice that it's off-center, and that's because this is not world spawn, so I have to hit oh, hang on. I have to hit tab in order to enter the mode where I can, like, resize it and everything, but that basically still leaves its origin in place. And so I'm wondering if moving with the ship is causing a similar drift in the origin. But then why would I end out there? Like, why would I end out all the way over here? That's what I don't get. Excuse me. Yeah, that's just... Okay. I'm gonna see if I can get different function. So go down here and I say go to all the get functions, because there's basically like there are multiple ways to move something depending on what class or what type of object it is. So I get current position, but there's nothing named that. Get difficulty name. Get entity. pause. FOV, get grabbed, get gooey. Head, health, hindrance, weapon. Light origin. Oh. Okay, so it's id entity, so I think it means that should apply to just about everything in the game. So if I don't get the origin, and instead I get the location, location. And that should be good for the captain's quarters. Oh, I don't think I need to demap them, but, you know. Mismatch on Parm 1 of call to set origin. Line 20. Okay. What in the world would that be? Set origin, dot get location. Id location entity corresponding to the So if I do, I don't know, set location, no. Id location. And that is one of two. Entity. So if I get the location and then get that one's origin, maybe? I don't know. Get location dot get origin. Is that gonna work? Triggering main menu watchdog. Okay. Alright, let's... Okay, so that'll work. It just... I forgot to do it with the second function. Get location dot get origin. Jesus, this is so dumb. Okay. And are we good? I'm gonna restart that. And I'm gonna re-demap just to be safe. I don't know what it would do, but I'm a little superstitious now. Okay. And now it's not moving. Okay, well... Let's see if this still works. No. Okay. Well, clearly we still have something to figure out. Man, this is tough. I think we're close enough to 3 hours that I'm just gonna call it. Yeah, I wish we could have figured this out for the end, but I don't know. This what's it? Oh no, that's not what I wanted. The spline cutscenes. This thing was using the target null entities, so maybe that would be better suited than just path nodes that don't hook up to anything. So I might try and replacing those with that. And then seeing how that goes. Otherwise, I'm not quite sure what to do, and I'm gonna have to troubleshoot, and I may have to ask people what the hell I'm supposed to be doing here. So, all right. Well, we did make some progress. It's just not. It didn't finish in a satisfying way today, I guess. So, which sucks, but it's just the way it is. All right. See you guys next week, and hopefully my throat will be less atrocious. All right. See ya. Bye.